Hello and welcome. We're going to be painting today an old map, or the effect of old paper. I'm starting with two acrylic colors, burnt umber and raw sienna. I'm using golden paints, and this is a kind of acrylic called golden open acrylics. They are a really great consistency. They don't dry as quickly, which is one of the reasons I'm using them for this application. This is a piece of illustration board, double thick. I have drawn my pencil drawing. I have used a spray fixative to hold it in place, and then I covered the whole surface with a clear matte acrylic medium, let it dry, and now, as you can see before, I wet the surface with the brush just to keep it consistently moist. I don't want the paint to dry right away. Acrylics dry fast, even though this open paint doesn't dry as quickly. Now I've laid in the colors, blending raw sienna and burnt umber, and now I'm just dabbing it with a crumpled paper towel. Notice the effect that it gives. Now you won't be able to see this very well, but I'm using a spray bottle. I'm holding it away from the canvas, or the panel. There's the spray bottle. And trying to get large drops to splatter over the surface. And then I'm just dabbing or wiping the paper towel across, and notice how where the water droplets are, or were, they've picked up the paint. Now when I did this, I decided that it was a little bit too much texture, and so I wanted to rework this again. The paint hasn't completely dried, but I'm putting a second layer on. Normally this is the kiss of death in acrylics, but for our purposes we want to try to create as rough a texture on the paper as possible. So using water and our two colors, burnt umber, raw sienna, I am putting another layer. It did not completely get rid of the texture that was underneath, it just softened it. And when I put the second texture on top, then it created an even more interesting texture. Take a look. Now, even though you can't see it, I've sprayed it with a spray bottle again, and I'm just going to be working it back and forth. I've put the, you can see I'm wiping it off there, but I'm also going to spray some water on the paper towel, just back and forth, working that texture until I get the effect I want. To make this effective, you just have to play with it. So what do you think? Now, we're going to have to clean up the edges here to create the effect of the actual scroll. So I'm going back to my drawing, and I'm using oil paints now to frame in the scroll. And I'm not being very crisp with those lines. I like the rough edges I've created doing the texture. Here I'm using oils, again, ultramarine blue this time with burnt umber, to create a warm gray, and I'm just putting it on thinly and wiping it off again to create the shape so that I don't cover up the texture I've created. Now we jump ahead a bit. Here I've already laid in the fabric underneath and putting in the finishing touches on the pottery and the other elements of this piece. You may notice me constantly turning my head to the left. My laptop to the left of me has got a photo reference that I took of a piece of pottery that doesn't quite look like this, but it's got the shape elements that I'm using to create this one. I'm putting in the final elements. I'm using oils again to paint in the mountain and the map here, and then I'm using a paper towel to dab away some of the paint to create kind of a worn look to the inkwork on the piece. And then this is the finished work. The acrylic base to create the texture on the paper really helped to create a sense of depth and realism that would be hard to do otherwise. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.